All right, so, we both love getting out there into nature, right? Hiking those beautiful trails and just taking in the scenery. But what if those serene landscapes, the ones that we love so much, what if they held secrets, like darker than we ever imagined?
Well, that's exactly what we're diving into today. We're going to be unpacking some unsettling trends that are surrounding these recent missing person cases in the U.S. national parks, specifically from 2024.
And the information, or I guess should I say lack of information, surrounding these cases, it's really disturbing.
Yeah, it is.
It really is.
Yeah.
So we're talking about those iconic landscapes,
Right.
The ones that we see on postcards and in those nature documentaries, places like Yosemite, the Appalachian Trail, places that project this image of untouched beauty and tranquility.
Right.
But statistically, around 1,000 people go missing in these parks and national forests every year. And that's just based on 2023 data.
So imagine what the real numbers might be.
I know, right? It's crazy.
In 2024.
Yeah, for 2024.
Yeah.
So it's a stark contrast, isn't it? This idealized image of safety and adventure clashes with this reality that is far more unsettling. I think what's even more disturbing is the almost deliberate lack of transparency from park authorities.
Right.
They're so reluctant to release information about these cases, which honestly just fuels speculation and unease.
It does. It really does. And I think that adds to the whole mystery,
Right.
Because they're not being forthright with the information that they have. So people start to wonder what's really going on. Is there something that they're trying to hide?
Exactly.
And so it just creates this whole air of mystery around it that maybe wouldn't be there if they were just upfront.
Right. And instead of clear communication, we're left with vague statements and unanswered questions.
Exactly.
Like take the case of Kirk Thomas Olson.
Right.
The park ranger who vanished in Yosemite National Park in August of 2024. This wasn't some inexperienced hiker. Olson was a seasoned ranger who knew Yosemite like the back of his hand.
This is a guy who, knows the area. He's trained in survival. He knows what to do. He knows the protocols.
Yeah.
And he still disappeared without a trace.
Yeah.
So it's very strange.
And what makes this case particularly troubling is the delayed response.
Oh, absolutely.
Olson left a note in his car detailing his route and return date, which is a common safety practice among rangers.
Absolutely.
Yet park officials didn't check his car until 14 days after he was supposed to be back.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
2 weeks of lost time. That could have been crucial,
Absolutely.
in a search and rescue operation.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a long time.
A long time.
To be missing in the wilderness.
And when they finally started searching,
Right?
his body was found just 2 days later.
Yeah.
But then the authorities clammed up,
They do.
refusing to disclose the cause of death or any specifics about the circumstances.
It's frustrating,
It just doesn't add up why the secrecy, especially when it involves one of their own.
Right, and that's what's so strange about this, is that you would think that they would be more
Forthcoming,
with information in a case that involves one of their own, but they're not.
especially.
So it begs the question, what are they trying to hide? And it gets even stranger, actually, because 20 days before Olson disappeared, a couple, Anna Rod and Miguel Delgado,
Oh, wow.
vanished on that same trail.
Oh, no.
They were thankfully found alive after 3 days.
Okay.
But after their rescue, the FBI shut down the trail without providing any explanation.
Hold on. The FBI getting involved in a missing persons case where the couple was found safe and sound? What is going on here?
It's like something out of an X-Files episode.
I know, right?
It doesn't make sense on the surface,
Oh, sure.
And it makes you wonder what really happened to Rod and Delgado during those 3 days and why the sudden involvement of the FBI.
Right.
And then just weeks later,
It's all very suspect.
Olson is found dead on that same trail, and the silence from authorities is deafening.
Yeah.
It's a pattern we see emerging.
A pattern of unexplained events and a lack of transparency. Okay, let's shift our focus to the Appalachian Trail. 2024 saw 2 tragedies there. Raghu Kudali, 61, found dead in April, and Thomas Venetton, 67, found dead in June. Both cases are riddled with unsettling details.
Yeah, and in Kudali's case, his hiking gear was scattered far behind him.
Really?
Yeah, this detail suggests he might have been fleeing something.
Oh, wow.
Or experiencing a medical emergency that caused him to shed his gear in a desperate attempt to get help.
Right.
Yet again, the authorities were slow to release any information about his cause of death.
And Venetton's case is equally strange. His body was found in a treacherous, rocky area far from the main trail. Why would an experienced hiker, especially at 67, venture into such dangerous terrain?
It's a question that remains unanswered.
It's so strange.
Yeah, and like the Yosemite case, authorities were tight-lipped about the cause of death and the circumstances surrounding Van Etten's demise. This pattern of secrecy is incredibly frustrating and just fuels speculation.
It's like they're trying to sweep these cases under the rug, hoping they'll just fade from public memory, but we're not letting them off that easy. We need to understand what's happening in these parks and why the authorities are so reluctant to share information.
Absolutely.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and to delve deeper into this unsettling trend, let's look at a particularly chilling case from Yosemite in June 2024 involving a cryptic 911 call.
Okay.
A woman called sounding frantic, pleading for help and mentioning Angel Falls before the call cuts off.
Oh my gosh, that's terrifying.
It is.
So what happened?
Well, tragically, police found the woman and a man dead in the water near the falls.
Oh no.
But here's where it takes another strange turn. The coroner couldn't determine the cause of death, ruling out both drowning and dry drowning.
So we have a frantic call for help, 2 bodies found in the water, and no explanation for their deaths. It's just another piece in this larger puzzle of unexplained events and information blackouts.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got a park ranger vanishing under mysterious circumstances, the FBI inexplicably getting involved, 2 deaths on the Appalachian Trail with bizarre details, and now this cryptic phone call leading to 2 unexplained deaths in Yosemite. It's a lot to process.
It is. It all points to a disturbing trend that we need to examine more closely. You know, what's happening in these parks and why are the authorities so determined to keep us in the dark?
Yeah, what is going on? This is crazy.
I know, it's very strange.
It's very strange.
Very strange.
We'll have to dig deeper.
We will.
And try to get to the bottom of this.
Absolutely.
Because something's not right.
Definitely not.
It's easy to get caught up in the details of these individual cases, but I think it's important to zoom out for a second,
Yeah.
and consider the bigger picture. Why are we seeing this pattern of unexplained events and information blackouts in national parks across the country?
Yeah, that's the question, isn't it?
It is.
Is this just a series of unfortunate coincidences, or is there something more systemic at play? You know what I mean?
Right. And the official explanations, when we get them, they're often vague and unsatisfying.
Right.
They cite things like protecting the image of the parks or avoiding public panic. But those explanations feel like flimsy excuses when you consider the gravity of these cases.
Right. I mean, the idea of protecting the image of the national parks and the tourism industry is certainly a factor.
Yeah.
I mean, these parks are a huge part of the U.S. economy.
Right.
And bad publicity could have a significant impact, but...
Wouldn't transparency ultimately build more trust with the public, though?
Exactly.
Sweeping these cases under the rug just breeds suspicion and distrust.
Yeah, I agree. It's a short-sighted strategy that could backfire in the long run. And then there's the argument about avoiding public panic. Authorities might fear that releasing too much information could lead to people avoiding these parks altogether.
But wouldn't that also lead to more speculation and conspiracy theories? It seems like a classic case of the cover-up is worse than the crime.
Precisely. And then there are the legitimate concerns about ongoing investigations. Releasing information prematurely could jeopardize those efforts, especially if foul play is suspected.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But what about the cases that remain unsolved for years?
Right.
Or the ones where the authorities simply refuse to acknowledge any details at all? That's where those explanations start to fall apart.
You're right, and that's where things get really interesting, you know, because it opens the door to other possibilities.
Yeah.
Possibilities that might challenge our understanding of what's happening in these seemingly safe and well-maintained parks.
You know, we haven't even touched on the fact that the official statistics likely don't tell the whole story. Remember those 2023 figures we mentioned?
Oh, yeah?
Around 1,000 missing persons reported annually.
Yeah, and those figures only include cases reported by the national park authorities themselves.
Right.
There's a whole other layer of missing person cases that simply vanish from the records.
Wait, are you saying there are people going missing and their disappearances are never even acknowledged officially?
There's evidence to suggest that's the case. Numerous families of missing persons claim their loved ones vanished in national parks, but their cases were never officially reported or investigated.
Wow, if true, that's incredibly disturbing. It raises serious questions about who's controlling the narrative and why they're choosing to suppress information.
It's a pattern that David Paulides, author of the Missing 411 book series, has been highlighting for years. His work has been instrumental in bringing these cases to light and challenging the official narratives.
Yes. David Paulides, we get a lot of requests from our listeners to do a deep dive on his work.
He's a very interesting guy.
Yeah, he's a controversial figure, often associated with some pretty out there theories like Bigfoot UFOs and government conspiracies.
Right. It's important to approach his work with a critical eye while he's done a valuable service by compiling hundreds of cases and highlighting the strange circumstances surrounding these disappearances. Some of his theories do venture into speculative territory.
But even if we set aside the more fantastical explanations, there's still a core of unsettling mystery that remains. Why are so many people vanishing without a trace in these supposedly safe parks? And why are the authorities so reluctant to engage in open dialogue about these cases?
Those are the questions that fuel our curiosity and drive us to seek answers, and I think it's important to remember that while Paul Eides's work might be controversial, it sparked a much-needed conversation about what's really happening in our national parks.
Right. And that conversation needs to continue. We need to push for transparency and accountability from those in charge. These families deserve answers, and the public has a right to know what's going on in these public spaces.
I couldn't agree more. We can't simply accept vague explanations in silence when people are vanishing without a trace. These cases deserve a thorough investigation, and the findings need to be shared with the public, regardless of how uncomfortable or unsettling they might be.
Thinking back to those statistics, even if we take the official numbers at face value, around 1,000 missing persons a year in these vast wilderness areas, isn't that number surprisingly low?
Yeah.
I mean, millions of people visit national parks annually, so statistically, shouldn't there be more disappearances?
It's a question that many people, including Paul Eides, have raised. It's almost as if the official numbers are deliberately low, designed to downplay the extent of the problem.
That's a chilling thought, isn't it? What if there's a deliberate effort to suppress information about these disappearances, to make the parks seem safer than they actually are?
It's a possibility we can't ignore, and it raises even more questions about the motivations behind this culture of secrecy. What are they trying to hide? And who benefits from keeping the public in the dark?
These are all questions that need to be explored further. And to do that, we need to be willing to challenge the official narratives, to think critically, and to demand answers.
Exactly. We can't just accept the status quo. We need to push for greater transparency, accountability, and a genuine commitment to solving these mysteries.
As we dig deeper into this topic, I can't help but feel a sense of unease. It's like there's this underlying current of something sinister lurking beneath the surface of these seemingly idyllic landscapes.
I get that it's understandable when we're confronted with the unknown. It's natural to feel a sense of unease, but that unease can also be a catalyst for curiosity,
Right.
for wanting to understand more, to dig deeper and search for answers.
Absolutely. And as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I think it's important to acknowledge that feeling that sense of unease and let it fuel our exploration of this topic. We'll be back to delve into some potential explanations for these information blackouts and try to make sense of it all. We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. Unexplained disappearances, strange deaths, and a pervasive lack of transparency from those who should be providing answers. It all adds up to a deeply unsettling picture.
Yeah, it's a complex and disturbing situation. And it's natural to want to find explanations, to make sense of these events, even if those explanations lead us into uncomfortable or speculative territory.
Right, and we've touched on some of the more conventional explanations. Protecting the image of the parks, avoiding public panic, safeguarding investigations. But none of those fully explain the scale and consistency of these information blackouts.
Yeah.
It's like there's a deliberate effort to keep certain information from the public.
Yeah, that's that unsettling feeling that kind of pervades this whole topic, If these were isolated incidents, we might be able to just chalk it up to, bureaucratic inefficiency or overly cautious PR strategies. But the pattern is too consistent, too widespread to ignore.
It's almost as if there's this unspoken agreement, like a code of silence among those in power, to keep certain things hidden. But why? What could possibly be so sensitive that it warrants such a widespread cover-up?
That's the million-dollar question, and unfortunately we don't have a definitive answer. But as we've discussed, even if we set aside the more outlandish theories, there's still a core of unsettling mystery that remains.
So where do we go from here? How do we grapple with this feeling that something isn't quite right? That there's more to this story than we're being told?
Well, I think the first step is acknowledging that feeling, that sense of unease. It's not about giving into paranoia or embracing unfounded conspiracy theories. It's about recognizing that there are legitimate questions that deserve answers.
Right. You mentioned before that knowledge is power. And in this context, I think that's especially true. The more we know, the better equipped we are to evaluate the information we're given, to ask the right questions, and to demand accountability from those in positions of authority.
Oh, absolutely. We need to be critical thinkers, to carefully evaluate the evidence and be wary of easy answers or simplistic explanations. And we need to be willing to challenge those in power to demand transparency and to hold them accountable for their actions.
This isn't just about satisfying our curiosity or unraveling a good mystery. It's about ensuring the safety of those who visit these parks, about protecting the integrity of these natural spaces, and about upholding the public's right to know.
You're absolutely right. This goes beyond mere curiosity. It's about fundamental principles of transparency, accountability, and public safety.
So what can our listeners do? What actions can they take to make a difference?
Well, first and foremost, stay informed. Don't just accept the official narratives at face value. Research these cases, read different perspectives, and form your own opinions based on the available evidence.
Right, and don't be afraid to ask questions. Contact your elected officials, reach out to park authorities, and demand answers. The more people who speak up, the harder it will be to ignore these issues.
And finally, share this information with others. Talk about these cases with your friends, family, and online communities. The more awareness we raise, the more pressure we can put on those in power to address these concerns.
It's a classic case of power in numbers.
Mm-hmm.
The more people who are engaged and informed, the harder it will be to sweep these issues under the rug.
Exactly. And remember, this isn't about fear-mongering or discouraging people from enjoying the beauty of national parks. It's about promoting responsible exploration, informed decision-making, and advocating for transparency and accountability.
So as we conclude this deep dive, we want to leave you with this thought. The allure of the unknown, the mystery that surrounds these cases can be both unsettling and captivating. But it's up to us to use that curiosity, that desire for answers, to drive positive change. Don't let the mystery silence the truth.